Couple things I need to say right up front. First of all, this is not a video slamming the Jehovah's Witnesses, persecuting the Jehovah's Witnesses. I have no interest in doing that. As a matter of fact, I can honestly say that I love the Jehovah's Witnesses. This is not even a video about religion. This is a video that is more about psychology. I also want to say that I have never been a Jehovah's Witness in my life. I have spent, however, several hundred hours studying the Watchtower Society very closely, and I have also spent some time studying some psychology books. So that's what this video is going to be about, more about psychology and how the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, which is the organization that runs the Jehovah's Witnesses, how this organization uses techniques in its writings in order to control and shape what the Jehovah's Witnesses do and think. So I'm going to try as hard as I can to make this video not boring, even though this is pretty heady stuff we're talking about here. I'll try to keep it going quick. All right, two books that I'm going to be using. One is both books are by Steve Hassan. This is a very popular book. Another book I'm going to be using is called Releasing the Bonds, also by Steve Hassan, Empowering People to Think for Themselves. Mr. Hassan uses he came up with this technique called the BITE control method, and BITE is an acronym for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. High control groups use these 4 different areas, and if you can control people in these 4 different areas, then you can control the people. Neither of these books nor the BITE control method were written for the Watchtower Society. But the Watchtower Society does use these techniques. So does groups such as Scientology, the Worldwide Church of God, 12 Tribes, the Moonies, International Churches of Christ. Not every single group uses every single technique, but we will find that the Watchtower does employ most of the techniques found in the BITE control method. So the first area we're going to look at of behavior control, there are 7 different categories and some subcategories. And then we have information control, also 7 categories and subcategories. Third area is thought control, 8 different categories for this one and subcategories. And then the last one, emotional control, 7 different categories, a lot of subcategories, and the Watchtower spends a lot of time using emotional control to control the witnesses. We will be taking our quotes from major publications by the Watchtower Society. Their #1 publication is the magazine called The Watchtower. Another magazine they produce is called Awake, and also the various books that have been published by the organization through the years. We'll be taking quotes and teachings from the Watchtower Society and see how they fit in the different categories of behavior, information, thought, and emotion control. If you're not familiar with the Watchtower Society, you'll need to be familiar with a couple of terms here. The leadership of the Watchtower Society is referred to in several different ways. If you see the word the Watchtower, or governing body, faithful and discreet slave, slave, or organization, all of these are talking about the leadership of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of the terms you may not be familiar with is the term apostate, which is used very frequently in the Watchtower magazines. Apostate specifically refers to anyone who used to be a Jehovah's Witness and has left the organization. And generally, it can kind of be used to refer to anybody who's against the organization. Worldly is a word that is used to describe anyone who is not a Jehovah's Witness. Another term you may not be familiar with is Christendom, which is used by the witnesses to describe mainstream Orthodox Christianity. All the different Christian religions are piled together into the term Christendom. All right, the first category, let's get going here. Behavior control, regulation of an individual's physical reality, where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates. We're going to look at the Watchtower magazine, February 15th, 1994. We must also be on guard against extended association with worldly people. Perhaps it is a neighbor, a school friend, a workmate, or a business associate. What are some of the dangers of such a friendship? So right there is an attempt to control who the witnesses are allowed to associate with. I also want you to understand that in the Watchtower magazine, it's not viewed by the witnesses as just some interesting reading or some advice. They are expected to follow whatever the Watchtower comes out with and whatever it says. If it's in the magazine, it's the rules for the organization and they have to follow it. Next category, what clothes, colors, hairstyles the person wears. We need to examine our response to the direction we receive from the slave class. That would be the leadership. Over the years, for example, we have received pointed direction on dress and grooming, entertainment, and improper use of the internet. Do we carefully heed this good counsel so that we are spiritually protected? And before we go any further, not just are we talking about what kind of entertainment we're allowed to view, but I also want you to notice how the use of the word we. We need to examine our response to the direction we receive from the slave class. Well, it's the slave class that is writing this. So they use the word we to make it seem like it's being written from the third person perspective. That the slave class is somehow, or the leadership is somehow other. But it's actually the leadership that is writing this. So in reality, this could be written as, you need to examine your response to the direction you receive from us. Because that's in reality what it's saying. But they use the word we because it sounds better. Some other areas, these aren't particularly applicable to the witnesses, what food a person eats or drinks, how much sleep a person is able to have. Well, sometimes the witnesses are tired because of all the hours they put in. Financial dependence, they do dictate how you spend your finances a little bit. If there is any material giving to charities, for instance, it is because there is a need to salve the conscience, or because one's reputation is at stake. Well, it could also be because giving to charity is a nice thing to do, but the witnesses are discouraged from giving to, well, it's against the rules to give to any other group other than the Watchtower Society. Little or no time spent on leisure, entertainment, vacations. Some might reason that areas such as entertainment and dress and grooming are personal matters. For the dedicated Christian who cherishes his place in the congregation, though, personal preferences should not be the sole determining factor when making decisions. Major time commitment required for indoctrination sessions and group rituals. Witnesses have anywhere from 4 to 5 different meetings per week. That's a lot of meetings. When you're in the witnesses, you work. They put you to work and they expect you to be putting forth the hours, and you are expected to come to every single meeting. Need to ask permission for major decisions. Need to report thoughts, feelings, and activities to superiors. As this spiritual warfare advanced, those serving with Jehovah's organization were refreshed by continuing flashes of Bible understanding, and their numbers grew until, in 1938, as many as 50,769 reported kingdom service during an international testimony period. If you're not familiar with the witnesses, you may be wondering what reported kingdom service means. Well, here is a field service card. The witnesses have to fill out this card, turn it in. It has listed how many hours they put in going door to door, how many booklets they place, how many books, how many magazines they place, how many return visits they have. That would be second or multiple time visits to a house, how many Bible studies they are conducting. So they do need to report what they are doing to their superiors. The witnesses receive positive rewards in terms of status. If you spend any time going into the door-to-door field service, you are a publisher. If you do a certain number of hours per month, you are considered a pioneer. And you can also be a ministerial servant, and this is someone who has different duties within the Kingdom Hall. Some of the negative things that they can experience, they can be thought of as being spiritually weak within the organization. You can be subject to public reproof, and this is if you're doing something wrong, you can be called out for it in public from the platform. There's a judicial committee hearing, which is a closed-door hearing where they talk to you about your wrongdoing. And the ultimate would be being disfellowshipped. This is being kicked out of the organization. This may not seem like that severe of a punishment. However, if you are removed from the Jehovah's Witnesses and you are a baptized Jehovah's Witness, you lose everything. Your family won't speak to you anymore. None of your friends in the congregation will speak to you anymore. you lose all your family, all of your friends, and you are thought of as being spiritually dead. Individualism discouraged. Groupthink prevails. Again, these are general for any kind of high control group, not specific to the witnesses. You could take any group that you are concerned about and compare them with this list to see if they have these characteristics. Individualism discouraged. Groupthink prevails. This characteristic of destructive groups can be most obviously demonstrated in a 1954 court case in which the Watchtower Society's legal counsel, Hayden Covington, was on the stand. The lawyer asked him, "A false prophecy was promulgated?" "I agree to that," says the Watchtower legal counsel. "It had to be accepted by Jehovah's Witnesses." "That is correct." "If a member of Jehovah's Witnesses took the view himself that the prophecy was wrong and said so, would he be disfellowshipped?" "Yes." Our purpose is to have unity. Unity at all costs? Unity at all costs. A unity based upon an enforced acceptance of a false prophecy? That is conceded to be true. And the person who expressed his view, as you say, that it was wrong and was disfellowshipped would be in breach of the covenant if he was baptized? That is correct. And as you said yesterday expressly, would be worthy of death? I think, would you say yes or no? I will answer yes, unhesitantly. Do you call that religion? It certainly is. Do you call it Christianity? I certainly do. Furthermore, on the subject of individualism discouraged, here's a quote from the Watchtower. "Thus the Bible is an organizational book and belongs to the Christian congregation as an organization, not to individuals, regardless of how sincerely they may believe they can interpret the Bible. For this reason, the Bible cannot be properly understood without Jehovah's visible organization in mind." Again, organization being the leadership. Rigid rules and regulations. Somebody who was a Jehovah's Witness created this list of 141 different rules that the Jehovah's Witnesses have to follow that really invades just about every aspect of their life.